Good morning. My name is Deba Onifade, and I'm the author of Liberating Nigeria, a guide to winning elections and reviving our country, with forward by Femi Falana, available on Amazon all around the world. Also available in Nigeria at Roving Heights Bookstore, Lagos, Booksellers, Ibadan, UI, OAU, Unilag Bookstores, and Glendora Bookstore at ShopRite Ikeja, and so on. Today I'd like to talk about Nigeria's revenue. I've been talking recently about cost cutting. I was on TVC and I talked about the need for the presidency to start the process of cost cutting from the presidency. I think it will be easier for the presidency to cut costs across the ministries and agencies, if it starts from its own house. And I'm talking about the whole presidency, not necessarily only the president. Every department associated with the presidency. And if it's easy, if you do that, you can go to the executive branch ministers, cut, and then go to the Senate or the House, cut aggressively, and then confront the governors. Now, everybody knows the governors are sometimes worse than Abuja, very wasteful. Many of them are taking 20, 30-year loans, local loans, that are deeply hurting their successors. I think there are laws regulating foreign loans. It's not easy for any state government to obtain foreign loans. You have to get approval from federal government. But I think if there are any laws regulating the local loans, it must be very loose. And I think that's one area the federal government has to work on. There must be strict laws regulating loans, obtaining loans by the state governments. I don't think it makes sense for a governor to obtain 20, 30-year loan when he's only going to serve for 4 years guaranteed, maybe 8 years if he gets a second term. Why should you be allowed to take such long-term loans? That can deeply hurt your economy and hurt your successors. It can sometimes make your successors useless. By the time you're spending 70% of your revenue to pay back loans. What is the successor going to do? But but I want to talk more about how to improve our revenue today. Not so much about cost cut. And let me tell you why. Let's look at the numbers together. Our budget 2023 was over 20 trillion. Expected revenue was about 10 trillion. Expected loan repayment over 6 trillion. 8.3 trillion for recurrent expenditure. So loan repayment and recurrent expenditure already about 15 trillion, 5 trillion about 5 trillion above expected revenue. So we agreed that we're in big trouble. Now, even the revenue, I'll tell you why even that revenue the assumptions are flawed. We assumed we're going to make, because how do we make revenue in Nigeria? Crude oil sales, VAT and taxes, and so on. But let me just talk about crude oil sales, which, we assumed 1.6. I think our OPEC quota this year is about 1.74 million barrels per day. We assumed 1.69 million production per day. We haven't done up to that. It's 6 months already. First few months, I think we did over 1.3 million barrels per day. Recent month, we did over 1.5. So at the end of the year, we might not hit that 1.69 million barrels per day target. That reduces our revenue. We assumed $70. The federal government proposed $70 per barrel assumption, and the House pushed it to $75. Right now, Nigeria's oil is selling at around, I think, between 74 and 77 or thereabout. There's a high chance we might not do average of 75, at the end of the year. And so our expected income in that area has gone down already. Let's look at VAT. Because of this new crisis we are in, subsidy removal, as well as this dollar crisis, a lot of businesses will be hit. I expect that VAT remittance will be lower, likely. because I don't think compliance has been bad in recent times because of the way it's framed up right now. But we expect that it will take time for small businesses to recover. CIT tax, company income tax also, I believe will suffer some challenges. I'll talk a little bit about VAT right now. So the fact that the new government has said that petrol and diesel now should, there should be VAT on petrol and diesel. If you look at petrol, ex depot price maybe 490 right now per liter. If you consider they said 60 million, we consume 60 million liters per day. I think that's the last I read from NNPC 2022 or thereabout. Most of us don't believe that. It's much lower. I believe that figure was bloated because of our subsidy scam. So let's assume 60 million liters per day, and then let's assume when you sell petrol to distributors and then to individuals, you have differential VATs that will also be remitted, and then the original VAT output, from the importer, 14 million diesel is 14 million, estimated at 14 million liters per day. If you assume all those 60 million for petrol, 40 million for, I looked at the numbers, I did some calculations. We will make over 500 billion naira extra if we assume 200 days from middle of June to the end of the year. So that's significant, but not a lot. So the government is not going to make a lot from this new VAT implemented. We're also making a lot from the devaluation of naira. We're going to make more money because more naira comes to federal government and the states and local government. But remember also that we have a lot of dollar denominated loans, so that will also increase our debt value. So both will cancel each other. So we might not hit 10 trillion revenue by the end of the year, might be 9 trillion or there. But if we hit 9 trillion and we repay over 6 trillion, just roughly, 3 to, so you're looking at about 70%. Now, let's assume we cut. No matter how much we cut, if we don't find ways to increase our revenue, we'll still have problems. Now, people talk about oil subsidy removal, expected revenue from that. Again, if the Buhari government had said that there was no budget for oil subsidy from June 30. Now, people are saying June 1. Whether June 1 or June 30, the fact is that there's no budget. There was no budget for this. Now, if Tinubu had wanted oil subsidy to persist, he would have had to go back maybe for supplementary budget or things like that. But that didn't exist. So, yeah, it's a significant amount, but it's not a fresh saving because it was not budgeted for. So we can't be thinking about that. If this new government is saying, oh, we're saving $10 billion, no, it's not fresh savings because it wasn't budgeted for. Now, what I'm trying to establish is that we also have to be very aggressive with revenue. The new government has a special advisor on revenue. I've looked at his profile. I don't know. He might be good. They know why they picked him. So now I just want to talk about a few things. So let's start with NNPC. I think government needs to privatize NNPC. Plain and simple. Now, it's very inefficient. I don't know the value right now. I've read different numbers, from NNPC CEO, and numbers varying from 2.3 trillion naira to 22 trillion naira. But I think the first thing the government needs to do is to find proper ways to evaluate NNPC's value and transform it the way NLNG is run, right? NLNG is 49% federal government, 51% is private. If you want to do it all the way around for NNPC, you can, maybe 51% for government, 49% for private. But we have to let the private drive that business. I would even think a foreign person to be the pioneering CEO who is a detribalized person doesn't care. Because if you put a Yoruba CEO there, everybody will talk, oh, because the Yoruba CEO is there to serve Yoruba interests. So if the guy decides to fire people from the north or from the east, they're going to say he's doing that because he's Yoruba. If you put a Hausa man there, oh, same old story. Hausa men have always, don't let me say Hausa, Fulani or Hausa men or whatever. They will say, oh, they've always dominated NNPC, that's why they're firing people. If you put an Igbo man there, they say, oh, now they're in charge. So I think after the privatization, I think we should use a detribalized person, perhaps a non-Nigerian for a start, who doesn't care about where you're coming from. Trim the workforce, employ the right people, fire who needs to be fired, run an efficient organization. And if that NNPC private organization can become more efficient, Nigeria can make a lot of money. Now, first of all, we'll make big money from the sale. And we can use that for massive investment over a 5-year period. Massive infrastructure investment, let me put it that way. Healthcare, education, human capital development. We can transform this country over a 10-year period if we transform our human capital strategy. Because that's our biggest asset. Nigerian people. We're more valuable than oil. And if we do that, and the amount of money we get from NNPC every year through dividends and things like that, if the refineries are not working well, sell them off. We need to do whatever we can do to, the airports in Nigeria have always had issues. I know they've been concessioned already. Let's do that. Anything we can do to bring in the private PPP, to bring private investors on board in a transparent manner, I think we should do. We can make trillions. The government can technically rake in trillions of naira in the next few months if it successfully sells shares in many of these organizations. And that can be used for massive infrastructure development. We're not going to use that to pay salaries, no. But because we expect greater revenue coming from these organizations, then we can use the revenue, we can plan higher revenues to pay more salaries. But if we use the one-time income we're going to make from those sales to pay salaries, then that's not good. And we need to have very credible people handle the sale process and things like that. So that I think is very important. Let's talk about gas. It's not doing badly, I think in energy we had some force majeure last year, did over 22 billion cubic meters. I think we've been exporting about 38 billion before then. If you look at a country like Algeria doing more than 55 billion. Now we can say that Algeria is close to Europe, they can sell both through pipeline and through LNG supply. But we need to take advantage of this Russia and Ukraine war. Europe is going to need gas from other places for the next several years, because even after the war ends, it's clear that Europe is going to try to be less dependent on Russia for gas supply. America is shipping record amount of LPG, LNG, or LNG to Europe, propane especially. But we have to find ways, whether it's LNG, liquefied natural gas, or propane, we have to find ways to double, or perhaps triple our production, our gas production, gas exports to Europe especially. Europe would always need gas. Of course, Nigeria needs more gas than we're currently getting. Yeah, Nigeria needs gas too. But I'm talking more about export. So we have to aggressively improve capacity for gas exports. We should be able to double our export within a few years. To be able to double our exports. And if Algeria can do 55 about double what we did last year. Let's even say last year was force majeure. Let's focus on 38 or thereabout. I think Nigeria can do 55. I think we should be able to, try to double. Double, we're talking about close to 60, 56. That can increase our income significantly because we have it. It's something that we don't need to reinvent the wheel for. So I talked about NNPC sale. I'm not talking about outright sale, 100% sale, no, but significant share sales. I've talked about gas. I also want to talk about customs. Now, there are a lot of waivers, from the Ministry of Finance, that deny us income every year. And, whether you're PDP, APC, Christian, Muslim, everybody that's influential wants waiver. But somebody that is trustworthy and fearless, I'll put that person in charge of taking decisions on waivers. Now, if we put such a person in charge of taking decisions on waivers, I think we can double or even triple our custom revenue every year. And that person can oversee customs. Because I think most of those waivers are not done by customs officials themselves. There's several waivers that come from the federal government. Now, of course, we know that there's corruption in customs. We know that. But I'm talking about waivers. Waivers, official waivers, like not even corruption, formal waivers. I think if we eliminate the waivers and find a completely political and fearless person, that can take those decisions, I think that alone can double our income through customs. And we also have to look at these high tariffs on vehicle importation to Nigeria. I don't know who is doing the numbers for them, but if you consider the fact that it's so cheap to import to Benin Republic and neighbors, and Nigeria makes it so expensive, then we will continue to have, just like the subsidy issue, we will continue to have motivation, that Nigerians will continue to have motivation to import to Benin Republic or Togo and find ways to smuggle the vehicles to Nigeria. As a matter of fact, if they try to smuggle 100 and maybe somehow they lose 30 vehicles along the line, they get 70 in, they have made profit. So I think it's better to aggressively reduce our tariffs. It's better to make volume. Now we have problems with all subsidy removal and dollar crisis already, which will make importation difficult, expensive, and we still need to import cars. Let's be honest with ourselves. We can't produce cars locally enough. Now, if you look at all subsidy removal, dollar naira devaluation, it becomes important to allow, because now the importation costs have gone up. So how do we encourage, and we still need cars in Nigeria, and we need to reduce smuggling? I think it makes sense. Just crash the tariff so that smuggling, the motivation to smuggle reduces. Then Nigerians bring cars to Nigeria. Easier for everybody. And I think the volume will rise and customs will make more money. And because now we have e-customs, a lot of things are being automated in customs. Let the cars come in. I hear of a lot of things are smuggled into this country. One of my staff visited a market some time ago and I was saying she was just lucky to see how I think fairly used clothing items were shipped to Nigeria. They were smuggled, I think, under rice. I don't even know if the rice that she saw were also smuggled, but she just stumbled on, rice and clothing a lot of cloth items smuggled together. Now, why do we experience this? Because because there's still motivation to smuggle in those items. We need to find ways to crash the rice is fine. We can still, because we want to promote exports, local production, we're not allowing rice to come in. I think that's proper. But there's so many things we're making it difficult for people to import to Nigeria, and you're motivating Nigerian importers to ship those items to neighboring countries and to smuggle them in. I think the customs can make more money if you allow many of these things to come in directly at good rates, good tariff. People will bring this into Nigeria and will make more money from tariff. So I think we can double or triple our custom earnings. And this cannot take more than 1 year. We can start implementing these changes within the next 3-4 months. So those are 3 things I think we can do that can increase our revenue, that can actually, double our revenue. I talked about customs. I've talked about NNPC. I've talked about gas. I've talked about customs. I think the last thing I'll talk about before I go will be how to deal with oil theft, which reduces our production. Now, I'll give this example of Russia. Russia is using Wagner Group for their war. Russia is one of the superpowers, but they've humbled themselves to understand that they need some mercenaries, local as they may be. I think Nigeria needs to understand that our military cannot do it. We need to deploy the military guys back to the war, against Boko Haram, against kidnappers, and let them leave the oil area completely. I think we should use a mix of the local militias and foreign mercenaries. Okay, so I think local people know the creeks, they understand the terrain very well. But in terms of big thefts related to using big ships and things like that to steal oil from Nigeria, you need very sophisticated systems that ordinarily our military should have been able to handle, but because repeatedly they are alleged to be complicit, I think we should use foreign mercenaries that have similar infrastructure, who are detribalized, who just are in it to get paid, trusted for deliveries, and let them man our oil and gas infrastructure. That's my suggestion. I think if we have a good collaboration between the local people and foreign security companies, I think we can deliver, we can deliver our OPEC quota. OPEC quota is going down next year, maybe to 1.3, 1.4, thereabout million barrels per day. Nigeria should be delivering 100% of our quota. We have the capacity to do over 2 million barrels per day. So if we can eliminate these thefts, we should be able to hit 100% of our OPEC quota every day. And that helps also to significantly improve income from the oil and gas sector. I think that'll be all for today. Until I come away again next time, I wish you a blessed